My sister dropped my father's memorial ring the moment my husband walked into the room. Not because she was grieving. Not because she missed him. But because she knew my husband's face. 10 years earlier she had stolen my fiancé, smiled through my heartbreak, and told me I should be happy for her. But that afternoon, standing beside our father's coffin, she finally understood something I had not known for years. The man beside me was the reason her perfect life had fallen apart. My name is Claire Whitmore, and for most of my childhood, I believed love was something you earned by being easy to ignore. My younger sister, Marissa, learned a different lesson. She learned that if she smiled sweetly enough, people would forgive almost anything. If she cried at the right time, everyone would forget who had caused the damage. If she wanted something, she could reach for it, and someone else would be told to let it go. Our father, Richard, owned a small hardware store on the edge of town. He was not a cruel man in the way people expect cruelty to look. He did not shout often. He did not break things. He did not call me names. His kind of cruelty was quieter. He noticed Marissa first. He believed Marissa first. He defended Marissa before anyone had even accused her. My mother died when I was 11, and after that, the house rearranged itself around Marissa's feelings. She was only 8, everyone said. She was sensitive. She missed Mom. I missed Mom too, but I was older, so my grief was expected to behave better. When Marissa cried, Dad sat beside her bed until she fell asleep. When I cried, he stood in the doorway and said, "Claire, I need you to be strong right now." First, I was proud of that. I thought being strong meant I was trusted. I thought it meant I mattered in a different way. But after a while, strength stopped feeling like trust and started feeling like a locked room. Everyone knew I could handle pain, so no one rushed to take it from me. There is a kind of child who does not ask for much. Adults call that child mature. They say she is responsible, calm, dependable. But sometimes that child is not mature. She has simply learned that asking leads nowhere. I became that child. I kept my grades high. I packed my own lunches. I did my homework at the kitchen table while Marissa sang in the living room, practicing for pageants Dad could barely afford but never missed. He bought her dresses with tiny beads stitched into the bodice. He drove her 2 towns over for coaching. He clapped until his hands were red. When I won a regional essay contest in 10th grade, Dad taped the certificate to the refrigerator for one day. The next morning, Marissa's dance photo covered it. I told myself it did not matter. That became my private sentence. It did not matter when Marissa borrowed my sweater and returned it stained. It did not matter when she opened birthday cards before I saw them because she liked the glitter. It did not matter when Dad gave her the bigger bedroom because she needed more space for her things. It did not matter until the first time she took a person from me. His name was Caleb. He sat behind me in chemistry and drew tiny cartoons in the margins of his notebook. He was not the most popular boy in school, but he saw me. That was enough to make him feel rare. We studied together after school for 3 weeks before he asked if I wanted to go to the winter carnival with him. I said yes before he finished the sentence. I spent 2 hours choosing what to wear. I remember standing in front of the mirror, wearing a blue dress that had belonged to my mother. It was simple and a little too long, but I felt beautiful in it. Marissa came into my room without knocking, sat on my bed, and watched me brush my hair. "You look nervous," she said. "I am nervous." She smiled. "That is cute." At the carnival, Caleb bought me hot chocolate, and for once I felt like I existed outside my family's ranking system. Then Marissa appeared near the ring toss booth with 2 of her friends. She waved at me, then at Caleb, then laughed like she had known him forever. By Monday, he was walking her to class. By Friday, he told me he was sorry, but Marissa was easier to talk to. I waited for Dad to say something. I waited for him to tell Marissa that sisters did not do that. Instead, he sighed and said, "Claire, teenage feelings are messy. Don't make your sister feel worse than she already does." Marissa did not feel worse. She wore his jacket to dinner. That was the first time I understood something I did not have words for yet. In our house, pain only counted if Marissa felt it. If I felt it, I was expected to fold it neatly and put it away. So I did. I folded Caleb away. I folded every insult away. I folded every small theft, every unfair dinner, every moment Dad looked past me, and I carried all of it into the only place that made sense to me, work. By the time I graduated, I had a scholarship to study forensic accounting and corporate compliance at a university 4 hours away. Dad said he was proud, but he said it the way people say something when they know it is the correct line. Marissa cried the night before I left. "You're lucky," she said. "You get to leave." I almost laughed. She said it like I had been handed freedom. She did not understand that I had built my exit one grade, one application, one sleepless night at a time. College felt like air. No one knew me as Marissa's serious older sister. No one asked me to be patient. No one told me I was overreacting. If I worked hard, results followed. If I prepared, I succeeded. It was not perfect, but it was fair in a way home had never been. After graduation, I joined a firm that investigated financial risk for mergers and private investments. It sounds dry to people who do not love numbers, but I love them because numbers were honest. They did not flatter. They did not cry to avoid blame. They did not choose a favorite daughter. Numbers told the truth eventually. That was how I met Daniel Pierce. He was the founder of a medical software startup, the kind of man who made everyone in a room feel like they had been personally invited into his future. He had bright eyes, expensive confidence, and a way of listening that made you forget he was probably measuring your usefulness. I was assigned to review one of his early investor packets. We met in a glass conference room on a rainy Tuesday. He stayed after the meeting to ask what I thought of the company, not as an auditor, he said, but as a person. I should have noticed how quickly he made things personal. Instead, I felt chosen. Daniel sent flowers to my office after our third date. He remembered small things. My coffee order. My favorite author. The fact that I hated being called sweetheart. 6 months later, he proposed on a rooftop restaurant with the city below us and a violinist playing too close to our table. I said yes. When I called Dad, he sounded relieved, as if my engagement proved I had finally become normal. Marissa screamed into the phone with excitement. "I have to meet him." I hesitated. That hesitation should have told me everything. But years had passed. We were adults. I had a career, an apartment, a fiancé. Surely old wounds did not get to follow you forever. So I invited Dad and Marissa to dinner. Marissa arrived 20 minutes late in a red dress that made the hostess stare. She hugged me first, then Daniel, and held on to him 1 second too long. At dinner, she laughed at every joke he made, even the ones that were not funny. She asked about his company with wide eyes. She touched his sleeve when she spoke. Daniel seemed amused. I told myself I was being insecure. Afterward, in the parking lot, Dad said, "Marissa really likes him. That is good. Family approval matters." Family approval. The phrase sat in my stomach like a stone. Wedding planning began, and with it came the busiest season my firm had seen in years. A hospital acquisition case landed on my desk, and I worked 12-hour days for weeks. Daniel said he understood at first. Then he began sighing when I opened my laptop. Then he began saying things like, "I just want a partner who is present." Marissa offered to help with wedding details. "I know you're busy," she said. "Let me take some pressure off you." Dad thought it was generous. Daniel thought it was practical. I thought it was dangerous, but I was tired, and tired people sometimes accept help from the wrong hands just to keep standing. For a month, Marissa and Daniel chose flowers, visited venues, and texted about seating charts. I saw their names light up on his phone at odd hours. When I asked, Daniel kissed my forehead and said, "It's wedding stuff, Claire. Don't turn everything into an investigation." That sentence embarrassed me into silence. A week later, I found the messages. I was not snooping. Daniel had left his tablet open on the kitchen counter while he took a shower. A message popped up from Marissa. "I wish she understood you the way I do." My hands went cold. I scrolled. There were photos, plans, jokes about how serious I was, lines about how Daniel felt trapped by my ambition. Marissa had written, "She has always cared more about winning than loving." Daniel had replied, "With you I can breathe." I stood in that kitchen until the shower turned off. When he came out, wrapped in a towel, he saw my face and did not even pretend. He sat down slowly and said, "Claire, I never meant for this to happen." That is the sentence people use when they walk towards something one step at a time and do not want to admit they enjoyed the path. Marissa arrived 20 minutes later because apparently Betrayal needed a meeting. She cried, of course, but not for me. She cried because she was scared Daniel would choose guilt over her. You were never there, she said. He was lonely. I looked at Daniel. He did not deny it. Then she said the line that finally broke something clean inside me. You should be happy he found someone who makes him feel loved. I called Dad that night. For one foolish moment, I believed even he would see the line this crossed. He listened, breathing heavily into the phone. Then he said, Claire, relationships are complicated. I said, she is my sister. He said, and she is fragile. Please don't punish her because your engagement failed. My engagement failed. As if it had slipped in the rain. As if Marissa had not pushed it. Something inside me went very still. I gave Daniel back the ring. I blocked Marissa. I stopped calling Dad. For a few months I moved through life like a person made of glass. My work suffered. I missed details I would never have missed before. My supervisor, Helen, called me into her office and closed the door. She did not ask what happened. She only said, You are too good to disappear inside someone else's mess. I cried then, not because the sentence was harsh, but because it was the first truthful thing anyone had given me in months. Helen helped me transfer to our Seattle office. Leaving was the first honest thing I did for myself. I sold most of my furniture. Packed my books. I drove west with 2 suitcases, one framed photo of my mother, and no idea who I was without the ache of trying to be chosen. Seattle did not heal me quickly. Healing is not a door you walk through. It is a floor you rebuild while still living on it. I learned to eat dinner alone without feeling abandoned. I learned to sleep without checking my phone. I learned that peace could feel boring at first when your body was used to chaos. 2 years later, I met Adrian Cole at a charity conference for pediatric medical access. He was a pediatric surgeon who also advised a small healthcare investment foundation. He was not charming in Daniel's polished way. Adrian did not fill silence just to prove he could. He listened, then answered. He asked questions and remembered the answers. When he disagreed, he did not make me feel small. Our first date was at a quiet Thai restaurant near the water. He asked about my work, and when I explained due diligence, risk exposure, and compliance failures, he did not glaze over. He smiled and said, So you find the cracks before people fall through them. I looked at him for a long moment. Yes, I said. Something like that. We moved slowly. I needed that. Adrian never punished me for needing time. He never called my caution coldness. When I told him about Daniel and Marissa, not every detail but enough, he did not ask why I had not seen it sooner. He only said, People who betray trust are often very good at borrowing it first. I married him 3 years after we met, in a small garden behind a library. No violinist. No rooftop. No performance. Just Adrian's hand in mine, steady and warm. For the first time in my life, love did not feel like an audition. Then Dad got sick. The call came from a neighbor because Dad was too proud to call me himself. Advanced heart failure. Hospital stays. Bad days, then worse ones. I sat with the phone in my hand for a long time. Adrian did not tell me what to do. He sat beside me on the couch and waited. Finally I said, I don't know if going back makes me kind or stupid. He said, It can be kind without being surrender. So I went. Dad looked smaller in the hospital bed. That was the first thing I noticed. Not weak exactly. Reduced. Like life had taken the volume out of him. He cried when he saw me. I had imagined that moment so many times. In my imagination I was cold. Powerful. Untouchable. I would stand at the foot of his bed and make him understand every year he had failed me. But real life does not always give you the version of yourself you rehearsed. I sat beside him. For a while neither of us spoke. Then Dad said, I thought you were stronger than her. I almost laughed. That was the problem, I said. He closed his eyes. I know. It was not enough. No apology can return a childhood. No dying man can hand back every moment he spent looking the wrong way. But he tried. He told me he had hidden behind Marissa's fragility because it was easier than facing my pain. He told me he had mistaken my silence for resilience. He told me he was sorry. I believed he meant it. I also knew meaning it did not erase it. Marissa came to the hospital cafeteria the next afternoon. I barely recognized her. The golden prettiness people used to reward had hardened into something tired. Her hair was pulled back. Her face had no makeup. She looked like someone who had spent years waiting for a life to become what she had been promised. Daniel left, she said before I asked. I stirred my coffee. For who? She flinched. His COO. Of course. There are men who do not fall in love. They relocate their appetite. She told me Daniel's company had collapsed after a funding round failed. He blamed everyone. Investors. Timing. The market. Her. Then he left with the same ease he had once left me. Marissa stared at the table. I thought winning him meant I was finally better than you, she said. I said nothing. She wiped her eyes. But I think I only proved I could take something broken. For the first time in my life, Marissa sounded less like a rival and more like a person waking up in the wreckage of herself. I am sorry, she said. For Caleb. For Daniel. For all of it. I was jealous of you. I looked at her, really looked at her. All Dad ever did was choose you, I said. She nodded slowly. That is not the same as being loved well. I hated that I understood her. I hated that pain had made us fluent in the same language from opposite sides. Forgiveness did not arrive like music. It arrived like exhaustion. Like setting down a suitcase I had carried too long, not because it was light, but because my hands were finally tired enough to open. I don't know what we can be, I said. But I don't want to hate you forever. She cried harder at that than she had at anything else. Dad died 6 days later. The memorial was held in the old community hall beside his store. People came with casseroles and soft voices. They told stories about how Dad had fixed their sinks, lent them tools, opened early in snowstorms. I listened and understood that people can be generous in public and still fail the person sitting across from them at dinner. Adrian arrived late because of an emergency surgery. I was standing near the front, holding Dad's memorial ring, a plain silver band he had worn after my mother died. Marissa stood beside me, quiet, almost peaceful. Then the doors opened. Adrian stepped inside in his dark suit, his hair still damp from the rain. The ring slipped from Marissa's hand and hit the wooden floor. Every head turned. Her face had gone pale. She was not looking at the ring. She was looking at my husband. Adrian stopped walking. For 1 second, something passed between them. Not affection. Not recognition in the ordinary sense. It was the look of two people connected by a story only one of them expected to remember. I bent to pick up the ring. Marissa, I said quietly, what is it? She swallowed. You're married to Adrian Cole? I looked at Adrian. He came to my side, and his expression told me the answer before his mouth did. I should have told you, he said. The room blurred at the edges. Marissa let out a small broken laugh. He was the investor, she said. Claire. He was the one who walked away. Later, in a small side room behind the hall kitchen, Adrian told me everything. Years before we met, his foundation had considered investing in Daniel's company. It was not a simple donation. It was a major partnership that would have given Daniel funding, credibility, and access to hospital networks. Adrian had been part of the review team. During due diligence, they found issues. Not crimes. Not one dramatic smoking gun. Just inconsistencies. Inflated projections. Vendor claims that did not match records. And then, through a chain of references and careless messages, Adrian learned Daniel had begun a relationship with his fiancé's sister, while still using that fiancé's professional reputation to strengthen his image. My reputation. Adrian did not know me then. He only knew there was a woman being publicly humiliated by a man asking investors to trust his judgment. He recommended the foundation walk away. When a founder lies in one room, Adrian said, you have to ask where else he is willing to lie. The decision did not destroy Daniel by itself. That mattered to me. I needed the story to be real. Not a fairy tale where one powerful man snapped his fingers and justice appeared. Adrian explained that the failed investment made other investors look closer. Once they looked closer, they saw the same cracks. Daniel's company did not collapse because Adrian hated him. It collapsed because Daniel had built too much of it on performance instead of truth. Character is due diligence too. People think investment is only about numbers, but numbers still have people behind them. A company can have a clean pitch deck and a rotten center. A founder can speak beautifully about trust, while betraying the person who trusted him most. That does not mean every personal failure becomes a business failure. But when someone asks others to risk money, reputation, and patients' futures on their leadership, integrity is not decoration. It is infrastructure. Adrian saw the crack before others fell through it. I listened without interrupting. Part of me was grateful. Part of me was angry. Not because he had walked away from Daniel, but because he had kept the connection from me. I had built my marriage on peace. Suddenly the past was standing inside it. Did you know who I was when we met? I asked. No, he said. Not at first. At first. He looked down. When you told me Daniel's name, I knew. I should have told you then. I was afraid it would make you feel studied. Or pitted. Or trapped inside that story again. I wanted to be furious. For a moment I was. But then I looked through the small window in the door and saw Marissa sitting alone in the hall, her hands folded in her lap like a child waiting outside the principal's office. So many people had made choices out of fear. Dad had feared Marissa's fragility. Marissa had feared being less than me. Daniel had feared being ordinary. Adrian had feared losing me to a truth he had not caused but had touched. And I was tired of fear being the author of every chapter. You should have told me, I said. I know. No more protecting me from my own life. He nodded. No more. I believed him. That did not fix everything in one breath. Real trust is repaired in days, not sentences. But Adrian did not defend himself after that. He did not make his silence noble. He owned it. That mattered. After the memorial, Marissa found me near Dad's truck. Rain tapped the windshield. The parking lot smelled like wet gravel and old leaves. I hated you for years, she said. I know. I thought you got out because you were better. I looked at her. I got out because staying was killing me. She nodded, crying silently. I don't want anything from you, she said. I just wanted you to know that seeing him today, it made me realize Daniel did not lose because of you. He lost because he was Daniel. For years I had thought Marissa stole my future. Standing there in the rain, I finally understood the truth. She had stolen the wrong man. And in doing so, she had pushed me away from a life that would have slowly emptied me. That does not make betrayal good. Pain does not become holy just because something better comes after it. I will never thank Marissa for what she did. I will never pretend those years did not scar me. But I can admit this. What I thought was the end of my life was only the end of a life that was never going to love me well. I forgave Marissa, but I did not hand her a key to my home. Forgiveness is not a door back in. Sometimes it is a fence with flowers on both sides. I could wish her healing without letting her stand close enough to harm me again. Adrian and I went back to Seattle 2 days later. On the plane, he held my hand and did not speak. I appreciated that. Some silences ask for trust. His did. 3 weeks after the funeral, I found out I was pregnant. I sat on the bathroom floor with the test in my hand, laughing and crying so hard Adrian thought something was wrong. When I told him, he knelt in front of me and pressed his forehead to mine. For a long time, neither of us said anything. I thought about my father, my mother, Marissa, Daniel, the house where I learned not to ask for love, the city where I learned to stand alone, the man who had seen the crack in my old life before he ever knew my name. Then I placed my hand over my stomach and made a promise to someone I had not met yet. You will not have to be easy to love. You will not have to be strong to be seen. You will not have to lose yourself to keep a family. Years ago, my sister thought she had taken my future. But some futures are not taken from us. They are rescued from us before we know how wrong they were. And sometimes, when the truth finally walks into the room, the person who drops the ring is not the one who lost the most. Sometimes she is only the first to realize that you survived. Disclaimer. This video is created for the sole purpose of entertainment. All situations, characters, and stories in this video are fictional and are built entirely using artificial intelligence technology. We hope you have a relaxing time.